Good morning.
Kirti ma'am, Dr. Tanuja Prem has also joined us.
Yes, as
Yeah,
education matters. Yes. Good morning, ma'am. How are you doing?
fine, Tanuja, welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for inviting me here.
Welcome, Tanuja, and all the best to the
Oh,
HD
how lovely.
department. Yes, I
Thank you
came
so much,
because you are
Anu, ma'am.
speaking. Thanks.
Oh my God, this is
Thanks
highly
for
embarrassing.
coming. No, no, no. We
Thank
want to
you.
hear.
Pleasure is always mine.
You've been conducting some extremely beautiful webinars, I've seen.
The need of the hour, ma'am, there's so much that can be done with especially children on the spectrum and children at home.
Very
And I
good.
see their time is just getting wasted. So I come up with ideas every week, something to do.
Good, good, good.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Alka, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing today?
You're not very audible, Alka, ma'am.
Hi,
Now,
Janvi.
Hello.
Janvi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Jan, we will start.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll start.
Yes, Alka.
Mokta, you can stop the screen share. Thank you so much.
A very good morning to all present. On behalf of the Department of Human Development of Dr. BMN College of Home Science, I welcome our eminent speakers of the day, Dr. Nirmala Almeida and Dr. Tanuja Prem, students, teachers, parents, and other guests for a RUSA-sponsored webinar on how to parent a teenager, the challenges and solutions. As it is said, conscious parenting is not being perfect. It is about being aware about what your kids need from you to reach their full potential. With this objective, we hope to reach out to a diverse group of participants, which we have already seen, which is ranging from 17 years to 72 years from India and abroad. Our first speaker of the day is Dr. Nirmala Almeida, who is a blend of a teacher, researcher, a practitioner, and a counselor. She was an associate professor and head of the Department of Human Development, College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan. Dr. Almeida has 38 years of teaching experience, guided 60 postgraduate students and 3 PhD students. She has 37 publications at national and international journals. Currently, she is a visiting faculty at different institutions and colleges. She is also a consultant and a counselor at different schools and colleges. She is a reviewer for the British Journal of Guidance and Counseling and an associate editor of the Indian Journal of Career and Livelihood Planning. She has conducted various training programs on areas like effective parenting, stress management, time management, and so on. So she is the most appropriate person for our today's webinar. We once again welcome you, ma'am, and we request you to start the session. Dr. Almeida will be speaking on the socio-emotional aspect on parenting. We also welcome our principal, Professor Dr. Mala Pandurang, who is here with us now. She's always been a source of encouragement for all of us. We welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Almeida, please.
Yes. Just putting up my screen right now. Can you see my screen, Janvi?
Ma'am, the screen is visible. Now you can go to the PowerPoint. Yes, that is also visible now.
Okay, can you see my screen? The first one, how to parent a teenager, the title slide.
Perfect, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, can I start then?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Am I audible?
You are very clear. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so right at the outset, I would like to thank the principal, Dr. Mala Pandurang, Dr. Kirti Patak, Head of Department of Human Development, BMN College, for inviting me to share my insights on this very relevant topic, how to parent a teenager, challenges and solutions. I want to make it very clear that I'm addressing you not only as a professional, but also as a parent who has made mistakes along the way, and I'm sure I can share them and the insights I've learned from the same. Now, my dear parents, I'm sure you'll agree with me that parenting is one of the most rewarding and the most gratifying experience. But you will equally agree with me that it can be one of the most mind-boggling, nerve-wracking experience. And why is it so, my dear parents? Because we have no qualifications to be a parent. We haven't had any training to be a parent. And many of us, if we have only one child, we have not even had experience to be a parent. So what do? We use either trial and error methods, or we use the strategies borrowed from our parents. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And so I'm here to expose you to a number of strategies which are evidence-based from the psychological research. Okay, and you can choose whatever you feel is going to be most appropriate for your child. So here goes. I want to start on an optimistic note. If you have never been hated by your child, my dear parents, you have never been a parent. Okay, now for a little quiz. I'll ask the statement and of course you'll have to answer it in your own mind. It's best to protect the teenager from negative consequences of his or her behavior. And the answer is false. Because if you do so, you're not allowing your teenager to learn from mistakes. You're not allowing your teenager to be a responsible person. Later on, when they have to face reality, they will be very frustrated and they could either be depressed or become aggressive. When my child, my son, was in the 3rd standard, he forgot a crayon box at home. The teacher threw him out of the class. I went running to school to give him that crayon box. And you know what the teacher did? She sent me away with the crayon box. She said, this is Almeida. It is not your responsibility to pack his bag. Mind you, I thought that teacher was harsh, but now I realize it taught my son a lesson all throughout his school and college years. Another one, it's good to get your child involved in many extracurricular activities. Well, the culprit word here is many. It's all right to get your child involved in 1 or 2 extracurricular activities. It can be very refreshing and very restful. But I have a lot of students coming to me who say mom and dad wants them to be into sports and music and dance and drama, and they are so fatigued and they are so stressed out. Grounding a child should not be for a long period of time to be effective. And this is true, because if you ground a child for weeks and weeks on end, he gets cut off from the social group. And it's very difficult for him to establish himself in that social group once again. It is that group that is giving him a sense of identity, of security, and of belonging. Teens do not really like to spend time with their family. That is a myth. That is false. Most students tell me they would love to spend time with their family if the parents are democratic, if they are respectful, and if there are fun times in the family. A lot of family activities like watching TV, playing games, going for outings, sharing concerns. It's only when there are a lot of family stress that the children feel it's best to be out of the house and with peers. It is advantageous for your child to have friends other than a best friend. I'm sure you'll all agree with me over here. It's good to have a best friend, but if you're separated from the best friend, the child gets devastated. Even if you're not separated from the best friend, if the child has other friends, it helps. If he has an academically oriented friend, well, that can help to push him academically. If he has a humorous friend, that can help him to go through life in a lighter vein. And if he has a handicapped friend, that will teach him to have empathy. Did you know that, my dear parents, that a child who is lazy and procrastinates may not actually be lazy at procrastinating, but may be anxious and depressed? Because anxious and depressed children have what is called executive function deficits. They're not able to plan. They can't organize things. They can't solve problems. They can't remember. They can't multitask. And we feel that they are just lazing around the place when they actually may be anxious, depressed, or having what is called attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Did you know that it's okay to blame parents to deal with peer pressure? If your friends tell the child, okay, let's bunk, and the child finds it very difficult to say no, they can always put it on the parents. Okay, my parents would be furious with me if I bunk. They will punish me. They will cut off my allowance. They won't allow me to drive a car if I'm the age where I can drive a car, of course. They won't let me go out with my friends. That's a good way to help peers to deal with pressure. Comparing your child with others doesn't stimulate them to do better, but shatters their confidence and self-esteem. I had a personal experience of this when my son was in the 5th standard. I mistakenly asked him, Richie, how come you do not have as many marks as Shalak in your maths exam? That was his friend, and he would always do better than him. And you know what Richie turned around and said? Mom, how come you don't cook as well as Shalak's mom does? I learned my lesson. Ouch, that hurt. Exposing teenagers to family stress does not increase resilience, but rather reduces their ability to deal with problems in their life. It's so true. Many parents feel it's good to give the child a lot of responsibilities. It's okay if they expose them to stress. They will get desensitized. They'll become stronger, tougher. But can I tell you one thing, my dear parents? Teenagers have limited resources. Those resources are for their own growth. If we expect them to deal with family stress, they have no or limited resources to deal with their own problems.
Almeda ma'am,
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Miss
but I think someone else.
turn off.
Can you all hear me?
Almeda ma'am, we can hear you. Someone has started presenting her screen by mistake. So I
Okay.
request Miss Sarika Chaudhary to kindly turn off the presentation at your end. Yes, please stop sharing so that we can see the speaker's screen. Thank you so much. Almeda ma'am,
Okay, so
we'll have to reach
right.
the screen.
Okay, did you all see the previous slide?
Not all of
Janvi?
it.
Okay, do you want me to go back to the previous slide?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right, I'll just very quickly say a child who's lazy may be actually anxious. It's okay to blame parents if you want to get out of peer pressure. Please don't compare your child with others because it shatters their confidence, and exposing teenagers to family stress decreases their resilience to cope with their own problems in life. And now we move on to, can we understand the feelings of parents? Parents, can you understand your own feeling? Because the first step towards doing something with those feelings is to understand them. If the child shows disrespectful behavior, what are you likely to feel? Angry, sad, inadequate. If your child throws books, clothes all over the place, which you have to constantly clean up, you'll feel frustrated, angry. If your child is feeling distressed but doesn't communicate, you'll be feeling anxious and sad. If your child gets into trouble in school and college and in the neighborhood, you'll be feeling embarrassed, ashamed, anxious. And if your child refuses to change undesirable behavior, you will feel both anxious and helpless. Many parents come and ask me, how do I deal with academic pressure? I know I could give you 20 points, but I've just selected 6 key ones. Introduce your child to different ideas of success. Not everyone can be successful academically. Can you as parents find other areas of success? For example, if a child has a talent which he can showcase, or the child has good quality relationships, or the child has got into the course which he is passionate about and he's growing every day in that subject, that is success also, my dear parents. Inspire them to find their own passions. As I said, a talent, a hobby, or interest, just one or at the most two can help to be refreshing. Encourage your kid to be a kid. I've noticed the ones with the maximum academic pressure are those who feel that they have to be grown up and who feel who have to study all the time. Encourage your child to do whatever he likes, whether it's go to the beach, go for movies, hang out with friends. You are a child only once in your lifetime. Reflect what your child is going through. If your child is doing badly academically, don't shout, scream, yell, I told you so, you're not studying, you're not concentrating, you're lazing around the place. In fact, say, let's sit down together and figure out what is the reason for you doing not so well. And find out, is it he's getting distracted? Is it possible that he can't understand? Is it possible that he can't memorize? Because once you know what the problem is, you can find the solution to the same. Establish a no stress zone. How to understand the feelings of your teenager? So sometimes the youth may tell you, okay, your child may come and share with you, I've got low marks in 2 successive exams. Now I don't feel like studying. Your child is feeling discouraged. Identify that feeling. If he says, I've tried, or she says, I've tried in vain to convince my teacher that I was not talking in class, what the child is experiencing is helplessness. The trains are never on schedule. I'm fed up, frustrated. My friends fare better than me in every exam, inadequate. I feel bad when you don't trust me, sad. How to help teens manage anger? The thing is, when your child is angry, it makes you angry sometimes. So he'll be shouting and screaming, or she'll be yelling, and then you yell because you want to be heard. My dear parents, that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Don't explode. If you feel that your anger is getting the better of you, use what is called timeout. Walk away. Tell your teenager, we are both getting very emotional right now. Let us calm down and we'll talk it at a later time. Help your teens to accept anger. It's okay to feel angry. We must validate it. What is wrong is expressing it inappropriately. Anger as an emotion is very valid. Keep a sense of perspective. Don't take things personally, my dear parents. Sometimes your child is angry with you, but the cause is outside the home. So don't take it personally. Try and understand. Set clear boundaries. You can have disagreements with your sister, but you cannot hit her, nor can you throw furniture all over the place. Reward good self-control. Oh, today I saw that even though you had a disagreement with your sister, you sorted it out so beautifully. I'm proud of you. Offer constructive options to that anger, listening to music, painting, and so forth. The last point is the most important point. Help adolescents change their way of thinking. So over here, I want to share with you that there are 3 thoughts that get a teenager to become very angry. Number 1, I must have that. Number 2, it's awful when I don't get that. And number 3, it's unbearable when I don't get that. If you could only change the must to, I prefer to have that. If you could change the awful to, I'm frustrated and annoyed, but it's not awful, because awful is catastrophizing the situation. If only you could change the unbearable to, I can cope with it, though it's difficult. These are the 3 ways in which you can change your teenager's anger by changing the thoughts which have given rise to that anger. And now we have people who get depressed. What do we do with people who experience depression? The first is to recognize the signs. If your teen is unable to concentrate, can't make decisions, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, eating too much, eating too little, low self-esteem, feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, harming self, or having thoughts about suicide, these are the signs of depression which you need to recognize. Listen, talk to them. Even if they say, no, I'm fine, mom, dad, I'm fine. Say, I'm there for you if ever you need me. Check on them every time, because depression can lead to something very severe in the course of time. Help your child get connected with friends and participate in activities, because friends are a buffer against stress. Participation in activities helps them to focus on something that gives meaning in their life. Help to change your child's negative thinking, just like in anger. And here we find that there are 3 things that depressed children say to themselves, which they have to stop saying. The first is, I'm useless. The second one is, nobody cares for me, nobody loves me. And the third one is, my life is going to continue to be awful. You have to change it to, you have worth, we are all there for you, we love you. This is a temporary phase, we will all work on it and sort it out. Of course, you have to seek professional help if that doesn't work. What about communication roadblocks? This is my favorite slide because many parents and many teenagers have problems in this area, communication. Now, what do we parents do? We fall in the trap of this roadblock. For example, number 1, we start withdrawing. Just forget about it. Let's not talk about it. Or we engage in name calling. You're a lazy lump, you're sensitive, irresponsible. Or we order them rather than making requests. Start doing your work immediately. Or we start moralizing. You should get up early and start studying. Or we start blaming. I got late going to office because you delayed me. Or we start threatening. If you don't do as I ask, I'll deduct all your pocket money. Or we start analyzing. You don't want me to go to work. That is why you find reasons to keep me at home. Or you engage in advising. You seem to be lonely. Why don't you go down and play with your friends? All these are roadblocks because, as you can see, my dear parents, they put the child down. They make the child feel low. They make the child feel inadequate. They make the child get angry. Now, you might say, it's all right to say what not to do. What should we do as parents? The first thing is you need to use door opener statements. Really? That's interesting. Tell me more. Parents should talk to their children to help them to communicate about their day by using these door openers. Please use more do's than don'ts. Please stay inside. It's not safe to go outside, especially during this pandemic. Rather than don't go outside, it's safe. Say more of do's and less of don'ts. Make requests important. Okay, so you can make a request, but make a request when your child is listening to you, not when he's distracted. Make a request and give an explanation. For example, I need you to clear up this table of your books immediately. I'm taking out dinner and there is no place to keep my plates. Okay, so you can make a request rather than out, take it out immediately, just now, at this very moment. Please make a request. You won't believe it. Your child will automatically get out of the table. No unkind words, no bad language. You're acting just like a 2-year-old. It can negatively affect the child's view of self. Bad language. This reminds me of a child who came home from school and told his parents, you know, Mama, what I learned today in school? And the mother said, what? 1 plus 1, the son of a bitch is 2. 1 plus 2, the son of a bitch is 3. Yes, I'm saying the word son of a bitch. The parents were so horrified. They took the child to school. Teacher, is this what you taught the child? Say, they told the child. The child said 1 plus 1, the son of a bitch is 2. And the teacher said, no, Mr. So-and-so, I think you use those words at home because I taught the child 1 plus 1, the sum of which is 2. Okay. Next is ask questions that make the child responsible. If your child gets up late, don't say, okay, I'll wake you up. I'll put your alarm. Ask the child, so what do you think you need to do to get up early? What would you like to do to help yourself? His problem or her problem is her problem and his problem, not yours. This is something beautiful that I've had many parents with. Instead of using you message, use an I message and you'll have a lot of success with your children. You selfish jerk. You think the TV belongs to you, that you can switch channels? Instead of saying that, say, I feel annoyed when you switch channels without asking me. Why can't you keep your room tidy? I feel frustrated when I have to clean your room over and over again. How dare you not inform me that you would be late? I feel anxious when you don't inform me that you're coming home late. You can see the difference. Here you're screaming, yelling, accusing, and blaming. And in the say category, you're giving your feeling to your child so that your child is invited to do something about it. How to discipline your teen. Okay. The first thing is to make your expectations clear in a respectful way. I need you to come home by 10 o'clock latest. Okay, for example. And don't yell, because if you yell, your teenager can yell even louder. Have your teen perform an act of restitution if he does something wrong. For example, do an additional chore, could be an act of restitution, or fix something that has been broken. Ensure, my dear parents, that responsibilities and privileges go hand in hand. This reminds me of a child who disturbed his parents, and she came crying to me. He's not studying, he's throwing his clothes all over the place, he wants to look at the TV the whole day. And I gave her an idea, which worked. She asked the son, it looks like you don't want to behave like a 14-year-old child. You want to be like a 3-year-old. He said, yes, I don't mind if I get all the fun of a 3-year-old. So you don't have to study, you don't have to keep your room clean. Would you like to be a 3-year-old for some days? He said, wonderful. Mother said, okay, do whatever you want. And he was playing, fooling around, not studying. Then he told his mother, I want to go down to play. She said, okay, I'm coming down with you. He said, why are you coming down with me? Remember, you're 3 years old. You need a chaperone. Mother, go up. Their friends are all laughing at me. She said, no, but you're only 3 years old. I'm standing next to you. You'll get hurt. When he came up, he wanted to see Superman. She said, I'm sorry. I'll put Popeye on for you. And then he wanted to eat some nice spicy food. And he said, no, I'll give you just plain rice, dal, and curds. And he was so upset. He said, Mom, can I go back to being a 14-year-old? Can you see what's happening, my dear parents? Responsibilities and privileges go together. Don't physically punish your child, because your child will only become more aggressive. Compliments should outweigh criticisms. There is research to say that there should be 4 compliments for every 1 criticism if you want your child to pay attention to that criticism. And of course, the criticism must be constructive. Do not take away a pillar of self-esteem. When disciplining your child, don't take away something that really hurts his self-esteem. For example, if he loves playing the guitar, don't take away his guitar. If he's good in playing the guitar, don't do that. Because you feel that you're disciplining your child, you are being destructive rather than corrective. Because that is the only thing that made him feel good about himself. When grounding, do not cut off all social contact. This is very important, because even if you tell your child, no, you can't go out to play with friends, that's okay, but don't take away his mobile as well. He's not in the social flow, but he can still be in contact with what is going on. Again, the same reason, we don't want to be destructive, we want to be corrective. And be a good model. If you have some urgent deadline coming on, please see that you are committed to working hard so that your child sees you as a good model. Some few rules for punishment. No corporal punishment, only grounding, forfeiting privileges. Punishment should be immediate, consistent, in keeping with the misdeed. Explanation should be given for the punishment. And of course, after that, if he engages in desirable behavior, you need to reward him for the same. Teenagers need to cut back on social media if, now this is a question that is regularly being asked, because they're spending a lot of time on social media. Look at these 5 major points. If there's withdrawal from face-to-face interaction, grades are slipping, assignments are left incomplete, if the child is avoiding all responsibilities, if the child is engaging in what is called fubbing. Fubbing is where teens snub people next to them by looking down at their phone. And phones begin to create conflict in their closest relationships. Okay, so these are the points to look into so that you know whether you need to cut down on those social media. Now, many parents ask me, how can we monitor social media? First, you need to talk to your teens about acceptable online behavior. Do not befriend strangers. Use privacy settings. Don't share anything you don't want others to know. Put limits on media usage. Today, parents seem to have lost control. Children are using social media all the time. You need to limit it. There is research to show that adolescents should not have more than 2 hours of recreational screen time. They can use screen time for academics. In the pandemic, one understands you can increase it a little more, but keep that in mind. Some parents have wisely kept computers in public places in the house so that the child can't fool around in his own room. So avoid laptops and smartphones in bedrooms. Have no devices at the dinner table, family outings. I know of a family that went to dinner and they made a rule that everyone would put the mobiles on the table. And the first one to pick up the mobile has to pay for the dessert. Okay, just to see that they're not addicted to the mobile. Set up an agreement when you buy the phone for that child. These are my rules. And if you do not keep to these rules, you have to pay a forfeit. Set a good example. My dear parents, some of the children tell me, but mom, dad are looking at the mobile the entire day. So what's the problem if we look at it? So we have to be good models for our children. How can I help my child make friends? The first thing you need to do is ascertain the reason. Why is he not making friends? Is he aggressive, too clingy, not having self-esteem, not socially skilled? Find out the reason. Help him to work on this deficit. Please tell your child the importance of give and take. Many students come to me feeling that another person should take the initiative. Another friend should help them, care for them. But I often tell them that reciprocity is important. You want a friend, you also got to go out of your way to make friends and be caring, loving towards them. Many are frightened to make friends because of the risk of losing them. And we have to tell them that this is the risk in life, which is unavoidable. The value of friendship is so great that the risk pales in comparison. Some parents have asked me, how do I help my child express feelings? The first thing you can do is help them name their feeling. You're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated. Help them to accept what they're feeling. It's okay to feel sad or angry or frustrated. Help them express their feelings in whatever medium they feel comfortable. Why don't you write about it? You want to talk about it? You want to paint? You want to compose some music to indicate how you're feeling? Ask about feelings if they don't come up with their feelings. What's the matter? You look sad. Are you okay? What to do if my child is in a heterosexual relation? The first thing you need to do is define dating. Sometimes girls and boys in high school say that they are girlfriend, boyfriend, but they are not dating at all. They're just friends of the opposite gender. Are they going out as a couple? Are they going out on a group date? Ask questions. Why do you like that boy? What interests you about her? Discuss curfew, types of outings, how they will inform you about their welfare, whereabouts, what is acceptable behavior, what is non-acceptable behavior, what is the time they should come home. Don't criticize their choice because they only feel inadequate and frustrated. And I would recommend invite friends of the opposite sex over in order to get to know them better. Then, if you don't like that particular boy or girl, you can objectively point out to what you didn't like rather than just oppose a relationship in a vacuum. I know, my dear parents, you will be wondering whether I am for a heterosexual relation, and many of you might be against it, but I just want to share something with you as a counselor that whether you realize it or not, most of the kids in college are in a heterosexual relation for which their parents know nothing about. So it's better you know that they are in a heterosexual relation and guide them rather than not know anything about it. And then they go through a spiral and get very depressed if the relationship breaks or if they are in an abusive relationship. How do I build my child's self-esteem? Love unconditionally. I love you, full stop, not I love you because. Make room for failure. It's okay to not succeed at all times. Praise the process. I may not be great in academics, but maybe I'm hardworking, I'm committed, I study well. I think that needs to be praised if I were a child. Help the child distinguish behavior and person. Very often, both parents and children will pick up one behavior of the child and that behavior then defines the child. Irresponsible child. Finish. That's all. What I tell them to do is draw a circle, make 8 segments, write down 4 positive qualities, 4 negative qualities, and then point out, am I only one of these qualities? No, I'm many of them. So you need to distinguish the behavior from the person. Model confidence. Don't criticize yourself, parents. Do not put up with the criticism of others. Don't get affected by the criticism of mother-in-law, father-in-law, mother, father, because then you will not have confidence and you can't give that confidence to your child. Help develop positive self-talk. The child may say, I'm stupid. I'll never be able to pass in this maths exam. What you need to say is, with hard work, the chances of you passing in this exam are high. Okay, so change it. Balance freedom with guidance. You don't need to micromanage your child's life, but you need to monitor his life. How to change your negative beliefs to your positive beliefs? Many of you parents have a lot of negative beliefs which need to be changed. I must be a perfect parent. No. You should say, I should try to be my best. I cannot stand it when my child engages in inappropriate behavior. You'll make yourself disturbed. Instead, say, I don't like it, but I can cope with it. It's awful when my child makes a mistake. Better to say, it's frustrating and annoying, but not awful if my child makes a mistake. When my child disobeys me, he's bad. He needs to be punished. Instead, you need to say, when my child disobeys me, his behavior is inappropriate and it requires to be corrected. Last 3-4 slides, how to help your child with the pandemic. I can't not say that. Okay, so the first one is, don't let them get bombarded with too much of reports of coronavirus, especially fake news. Help to keep things in perspective. Focus on what is in your control. What is in our control? Social distancing, sanitizing, wearing a mask. The spread of the virus and the vaccine is not in my control. Let me focus on what is in my control. Am I making things out to be a catastrophe? Mom, dad have told me to stay indoors. Okay, is it a catastrophe? It may be frustrating, but it's definitely not a catastrophe. Validate their feelings. During this pandemic, many teenagers are feeling angry, anxious, depressed, frustrated. Please say it's okay to feel that way, but we need to do something about it. Get them to hold on to their stability rocks, the rocks that are going to give them some kind of comfort and predictability. Help them to stay connected with friends and extended family members because they will serve as buffers against stress. Don't expect behaviors from them that are not appropriate for their age. For example, a teenager wants freedom and excitement, whereas you and I, parents, we want consistency, predictability, and routine. It's okay, we generations may differ in what we want, but we can't expect things from them that are not age appropriate. Step up their usage of social media because they're not meeting their friends face to face, and help them to spend time constructively during this pandemic. If they have a little more free time, online classes, updation of CV, documenting the pandemic in a kind of a time capsule, which you can look back later on in life, would be valuable pursuits. How well do you know your child, my dear parents? With whom does your child particularly hang out with? What is his attendance? What are the names of his teachers? How much time does he spend on social media? What are his or her special interests? What are her signs of distress? What does your child expect of you as a parent? If you have said yes to all these answers, that you know these answers, then you're a terrific parent. One of my last slides, few facts about parenting. Effective parenting requires a sound marital relationship. I just want to share something very important with all of you parents, that the marital relation, the relation that you have with your spouse, is the axis around which all relationships revolve. If husband and wife get along well, they love each other, care for each other, support each other, respect each other, they will be good parents to their children. But if on the other hand, there's nothing but denigration, criticism, shouting, screaming, disrespect for each other, the children get sucked into this bad relation. They become allies of one of the parent, they become mediators, they become pacifiers, they get absolutely stressed. Shocking discovery I made when I became the counselor of St. Xavier's College, that 90% of the students who are coming to me for counseling are coming because of a very negative family environment. Either the parents are not involved with them at all, or the parents are screaming and shouting at them the whole day, or the parents are screaming at each other the whole day, and it becomes a very, very stressful experience for the child. Parenting involves versatility. Did you know, especially the moms in this group, that we are so versatile as parents and we need to continue to be versatile? For example, we are cooking in the kitchen and then our child knocks at the door, so we glide like a dancer to open the door. We open the door, the child wants food immediately, so we become magicians because we have to produce that food immediately. And then there goes the fighting between brother and sister, and we have to intervene. We are called to be referees at that point in time. And then they fall sick. We become nurses and doctors. And then they get wounded in their heart. We become counselors. So you can see the enormous hats that we play on for our particular children. Parenting involves creativity. I always give this example because it's a beautiful example of a parent who tried to convince her children that she loved both of them. So this mother had twins. One child was fair in complexion and the other dark in complexion, fraternal twins. And the darker child always told the parent, I know mother, I know you don't like me as much as you like my sister. And though the mother tried by word and deed to show the daughter that she loved her, daughter was not convinced. So one day, the mother took her to an ice cream parlor, took both of them and told them to choose their ice creams. One chose vanilla ice cream and the other chose chocolate ice cream. I think you can get what I'm saying from this little exercise. Then the mother came home. She put her arm around one of the children and said, you are my vanilla, and to the other child, you are my chocolate. Okay, and why did the child choose vanilla and chocolate? Because they told the mothers, we love the flavors. And this is what she took when she put her arms around her shoulders and said, now can you understand? I love my vanilla and I love my chocolate. Parenting involves both joys and sorrows. I'm sure you parents waited for your children to say the first words, mama, dada, so happy. You are happy at their accomplishments, at their successes. You were also sad when they fell ill, when they did not accomplish the things that you wanted them to, when they didn't live up to your dreams. But the most important thing to do, my dear parents, is to embrace both joys and sorrows and move on, not to get too attached to the joys and not to get too preoccupied with the sorrows. I now end with this last slide. Bringing up a teenager implies trusting, encouraging, empowering, nurturing, accepting, growing, exemplifying, and respecting. Thank you for your participation. Please translate what you have learned into practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Almeida, for giving simple tips to parents for better parenting. I hope the parents have understood the simple way she gave as to how to handle and take care of their young teenager children. Now I would request Dr. Kirti Pathak to introduce our next speaker of the day, Dr. Tanuja Prem.
Kirti ma'am, we can't hear you. You need to unmute your mic.
सुनाई नहीं दे रहा कीर्ति मैम सुनाई नहीं दे रहा कीर्ति मैम you are in mute.
Yeah, now can you hear? Okay. So it is my great pleasure and I will say great and greatest pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Tanuja Monesh Prem. Dr. Tanuja is founder of Wind Therapies and Education Matters. She is a psychotherapist, life leadership trainer, and an educationist, special educator, and drama therapist. Now, when I was going through the biodata of Tanuja, I was wondering where she has reached. She began her academics by doing her Bachelor of Arts. Then she did her Bachelor's in Home Science, Human Development, followed by Masters of Art in Psychology, followed by Master of Science in Psychotherapy and Counseling. And finally, she loaded up with PhD in Counseling Psychotherapy and BEd in Autism Spectrum Disorders, and found her niche of where she is today. As far as certification are concerned, she is a certified rational emotive behavior therapist and a cognitive behavior therapist. Further on, she has completed workshops on inclusive education for children with disabilities, and she has conducted workshops for skills for adolescents, grief counseling, plus various other topics. She has also acted as a trainer for program on Leadership Management International. Her professional enterprise includes training directors and senior executives in productivity and leadership management for globally present corporates like Infosys, Gold Star, Serum International, BARC, and also in important matters of parenting, relationship. She has conducted methodology for working professionals on management, time management, 360-degree responsibility, anti-bullying, trauma, and acceptance of differences, while counseling scores of parents and thousands of children at Education Matters, including both, not limited to providing mental health support in marital relationship issues also. She has also conducted workshop based on a Katha Sagar storytelling module of psychology named as Katha Atha Galata. I hope I have pronounced it right.
No, ma'am. It's called Katha Ata. Katha is storytelling, Ata is playing, and Galata is drama.
Okay, so Katha Ata Galata.
Yes.
Thank you, Tanuja. For psychologists and special educators, apart from conducting workshops on rational emotive behavior therapy and holding training programs using origami as a storytelling tool, an educational aid for teachers, parents, and students, she has conducted CRE lectures at the National Conference CRE held on different topics in different states of India. Also, she has also lectured in our Ascendity College, in my own college also, and other BEd students from Mumbai University, and has been a speaker on psychology of happiness. She doesn't say good morning, she doesn't say good afternoon, she says happy times. Every time she says happy times. On the social front, Tanuja has also started working with, specifically during the lockdown period, she has started a project, Dharavi Matters, under the aegis of Education Matters, wherein she reaches out online to school and college going students who reside in Dharavi, whereby not only are the school and college students taught to cope up with the current times, but even the senior lot is trained to become mentors for the younger children so as to prepare them to facing challenges ahead times. Her valued strengths are sound communication and interpersonal skills, swift crisis management, know-hows, including both but not limited to effective psychological stress busting solutions. She is also a linguistic with a fluency in English, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Kannada, and other some reasonable working knowledge of Sindhi. And at the family front, she has a beautiful better half, Mr. Monesh Prem, and she is blessed with 2 children, a daughter and a son. And Tanuja, welcome to the session here. And it is a proud privilege to be here to hear you again.
Ma'am, it's my privilege, absolutely. Thank you so very, very much for the lovely introduction. And I was fascinated listening to Dr. Nirmala. The entire morning, I think, can be described as productive. So let's go on to have some more happy times. And today, I've been given a topic called vocation and career, okay, for children who are growing up, they're teenagers, and they need to explore. And like Dr. Nirmala rightly said, responsibility and accountability are something that today's parents are maybe not working on as much as they require to. Today we have an entire set of educated illiterates. Okay, we have more postgraduate students than we ever did before. I love the expression on certain people's faces like educated illiterate, ye kya hota hai? Okay, yes. They have the academic background, they have the skill set that is required educationally. But when you put them out into the market, people's skills are missing, resilience is missing. adjustment, tolerance, okay, the sense of entitlement. I am maybe a PhD, so I must be treated like this. I am a PG, I have a MBA, so I need to be treated like this. Okay, the sense of entitlement is very high. So that's why we call them the educated illiterate, where they find it very easy to find jobs, but very difficult to sustain them. And the training doesn't start in adulthood. It needs to start right at infancy and childhood when they are toddlers. That's when we start working with our children, encouraging them to be more responsible and accountable. And it's never too late. Okay, I had questions like, my children are spending too much time on the phone. They have no motivation. They have no this, they have no that. All of it we'll answer. I think we need to also have question and answer time. So I'm going to be very brief in my presentation today, and more of a discussion would be healthier. Okay, so I will present my PPT and take it forward from there. Just give me a minute to share screen. I hope the PPT is visible.
No, it is not.
No, it's coming on, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's coming on.
Yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Ma'am, please put it on slideshow mode.
yes. Give me a second. Actually, in our times in college, we didn't have something called, so much. We just started learning computers, I think, in first year of college. It was very interesting. And since then, we are learning every day. Okay, now is it visible? Okay. This is just an introduction how to parent a teenager, challenges and solutions. Like I said, that we have a whole bunch of educated illiterates who require to learn how to build on curiosity. Asking questions somehow is always frowned on. Okay, why is asking questions frowned on is some huge question mark that I have. Maybe this is a skill set that we need to encourage. Generally, what parents do is look it up on Google because that's the easiest solution now. Or there's an irate answer that comes through. But if you don't know, maybe you can hold your child's hand and sit down and have a guided search on Google if you don't know. And it's okay not to know because we all are not born knowing stuff. Yeah, so we need to instill the ability to be curious as a cat. Ask why, what, where, when, how, all the time, so you can learn better. When we inhibit the skill at home, children don't generalize it outside of home, and that becomes a difficulty. Skill set, imagination. Okay, very important to have an imagination about how you can problem solve this one particular topic in many ways. When we talk about, educated illiteracy, empathy is another thing. It's me, myself. I don't care what somebody else is getting. As long as I am able to perform and move forward, I am happy. And that is something that we need to change with our children. Yes, I understand we've moved from a joint family system into a nuclear family system, and now each one is doing their own thing within the home. But within the home also, you can have congruence, you can be together and work with understanding how the other person is feeling. It's not like I don't care, which is a commonly found attitude. Entrepreneurship is again very important. It catches on with all the other skills required. Okay, we need to have that thing. Come on, let's initiate something new. If our children are used to getting everything on a platter, they're never going to want to work on all these skills. So please, when you're working with your children at home, I use the term work, okay, not rearing or bringing up. No, work with our children, because our life is it's completely a work of art. Our entire life, the way that we root it, depends on us as parents, and our children, when they are younger, are dependent on us. Okay, I'm not speaking only as a professional, I'm also a mother. And resilience is something, you fall, you get up, you fall, you get up. Okay, you dust and see, you again go back and ask questions. Where was I going wrong? What was I doing right? What worked for me? What didn't work for me? And then move in accordance. Okay, so that's something that we need to do. Now, children have lofty ideas, like lovely ideas about where they want to go, what kind of career they want to have. Here again, we have that typical mindset wherein children need to study, they need to have their degrees in place, and they need to go forward. But are their career expectancies actually in tune with their abilities? Something that we need to look at. A career, what is the final goal of a career? The final goal of a career is essentially to give you that kind of ability to sustain life comfortably. Okay, when you invest yourself working for either you're employable, yes, another term that I like to use. Employability issues are huge. Okay, because of the educational illiteracy. So when you look at what kind of ideas people have about the careers that they're going to have as adults, children will come up with, I want to be a pilot. I think I wanted to be everything. Okay, Dr. Kirti Pathak is the one who rerouted my life into being a psychologist and a special educator. Otherwise, I would have become an interior designer. And so I'm thankful to her for that again and again every day. Okay, so essentially what happens here is whether your life expectancy and your actual ability to reflect back and understand, do I really want to do this? Am I able to do this? Is it going to be something that's going to sustain me, or is it just my passion? Okay, if it's your passion, then you need to work with it as a passion. Today's kids all want to become game developers, they want to be YouTubers, they want to be someone who's going to really change the world by making billions. Technology is huge, okay, and it really works. But beyond the game developer, what is that smoke screen hiding? So much of hard work, so much of learning. Yeah. So is your child able to go back to the same skill set? Are they curious enough? Are they working with certain sets that they already know about? Will they be able to sustain the long hours of work, the intricate demand for design, the intricate demand for technical knowledge? Do they have that kind of a base to sit down and work with physics, chemistry, understanding so many different aspects of design and putting them all together to create something new? Okay, so we need to understand that. And then we come on to this factor. Are our children really dreaming of jobs that are realistic? Or 15 years down the line, once they have all their educational skill sets in place, we discover that there is no job market for that. In between, I don't know if you realized, I mean, there was a dearth of architects, there was a dearth of lawyers, there was a dearth of so many different professionals. Today, we are facing a dearth in the special education field. Anybody who does not get a job becomes a teacher. Why? And a teacher is one who creates all sorts of jobs. Yeah. So we have to have that. Today, artificial intelligence is coming into play. Are our children aware of that? Are our children aware that certain skills that they had right from the beginning, we've been training them to do? Okay, like previously, when my father went to his CA, it used to be hand done accounting. Over a period of time, Tally took over. So today it's faster, more streamlined. Okay, so then there's ethical hacker who comes and hacks into the Tally and creates something different. So many stories floating around. So what kind of skills are those that we have to keep upgrading on? Okay, so that kind of reality check is something that we need to do. And when we start at 16, 18, 20, it comes as a rude shock to the child. Why now you're talking to me about these things? So when your child comes through and says that I don't know what I want to do, I am lost, okay, sit down with them and start making lists. Okay, what are the different kinds of careers you can choose from? All right, so if you want to become a farmer, if you want to become a teacher, if you want to become an environmentalist, if you want to become an engineer, if you want to become a software person, whatever it is, let's list out what are the skills required, what are your academics required for it, what kind of jobs are available, what kind of skills do you need to build for it, if these are the things, what are the pros, what are the cons. Once you sit with your child and have this discussion, you don't have to have it about one particular profession. You can keep working on different professions. Enact them at home. Study them together. Interview somebody. A child as young as 8 can interview another professional. with a set of questions. That adds clarity. Okay, and when you have options, when you go to a restaurant, you know you want to eat your veg Manchurian, but when you see the entire list on the menu, you're like, oh, I want to have the Szechuan also, and I want to have the fried noodles also. Okay, so the also start building up. But clarity comes in when your brain says, no, I think I'm happy having a paneer Manchurian today. Okay, so that is how now you made a choice. When you were given so many different dishes, you could choose one because you've already experienced them. But the first time you go, oh, everything is so attractive, isn't it? Yeah. So we need to have that clarity whether our talent, whether our our talent is going to become our career, our vocation is going to, or our passion is going to become a career. I'm a very religious person. So does that mean that I'm going to become a nun, or does that mean I'm going to become a pandit? Is that going to help me sustain for the longest? There is a child who is extremely good at gaming and winning superb. You name the game and he's winning at that. Does that mean as a profession it's going to help him sustain his life? Okay. Think about how and where those jobs are going to be 15 years down the line. 15 years, 20 years down the line, that same child who's maybe 14, 15 today and extremely agile, extremely able to focus, by that time, what is going to happen to his physical health? What is going to happen to his emotional health? What is going to happen to his interpersonal skills? How is he going to be translating that into a profession which is going to help him sustain? Is that same game going to be around so many years later? No, it will have changed. How much is he going to be able to adapt to that? These are called having a reality check. Career confusion. Huge thing. My peer is going to Africa. I'm going to Africa. Okay, hardly any children say that. But yeah, they don't want to go out and do social work, but yes, they want to go abroad to study because they're seeing the beautiful YouTube presentations out there. They're seeing all the kinds of opportunities present. They're partying, the fraternities that are there, the sororities that are there, the kind of exposure. So it's all viewed very nicely. But do they realistically understand where they need to go, what they need to study? Have they identified the university? Even within India, okay, what is required? Can you become a psychologist with a science background if you've done your BSc? Can you become a CA if you go and do your arts somewhere? It's not going to work that way. So what is the baseline that is required? Please work with your children from the beginning. Having that kind of a skill set ready is really what helps. Having lists really helps the child to work with it. Be open. Don't rubbish the thing that, okay, my child wants to become a chef. No, don't become a chef. Why? Let him explore it. Let them become a chef for a week at home. Explore that, let him come up with dishes. That's when you'll know whether it's really working or not working. This is it. See? So cool, isn't it? Hardly anything to do today. So we spoke about career confusion. We spoke about one moment, just give me one moment. Yes, so we spoke about career confusion. We spoke about relating to the career. Very important to know is where and how are we going to work with our child. Okay, it is a very important feature not to rubbish the child's expectations. Keep the lines of communication open with your child so that your child can come forth and share the silliest of things. Like I had one child come to me and say, I want to become a clown. Have you heard of clowning as a profession? Okay, but clowning is a profession. Clowning is something that people do. They go to hospitals where you have terminally ill children or adults, and they make them smile, they make them feel better. Okay, and that child had an aunt who had attended a conference in 2019. There was a conference here in Bombay on clowning, and the child's aunt had come home and she did all sorts of foolish things and made everyone so happy, and it dissipated the entire tension of the home. So the child said, clowning is the thing to be. I want to be a clown. Okay, it was so interesting, so exciting. Reason being, it gave the child something different to think about. And when that exposure came through, the child was also very happy. They sat down and worked on it. He's a 12-year-old. So you know what the parents did? The parents asked the aunt to take him along everywhere whenever she went to any kind of a hospital or a hospice, and work with him, ask him also to clown a little. And when he saw the pain there, he realized the smiles that are coming through could actually he could make a difference in their life. And he is working as a volunteer. How can we encourage our children? How can we expose them to explore different career opportunities? Today, we have a lot of internship opportunities available, both paid and unpaid. Okay, and they expect children to be 13 and above. Please encourage your children to do that. Work with different profiles that you require to get into a career. Understand the strengths and weaknesses. Okay, figure out whether it is a high interest motivation job that they're looking at because they think, or they think they're doing it because they're fascinated by how, glamorous it is. Are they getting into that job profile because they were, or the profession because their peers are doing it? Please, please, please work with that. Understand. Don't be judgmental or harsh and say, no, you can't do this, or push your ideas. Okay. In the olden days, we used to say farmer's son becomes farmer, cobbler's son becomes a cobbler. But today times have changed. Yes. A lawyer's son doesn't become a lawyer. Everyone has so many opportunities. When my father was younger, he had only what, BA, BCom, medicine, engineering, usme bhi only 4 fields, and choose and move ahead. But today in engineering itself, there are so many fields. In teaching, there are so many different avenues that you can do. So work with your child, keep talking to them, and see how, if they can job shadow. You'll say, "Arey, today in COVID time, how can we job shadow?" Very easily. You all are here in the webinar. You're watching us, you're listening. The same way, you go on mute, you go on silent, and let that person observe, let your child observe the person at work. It's as simple as that. But we need to encourage them to work, whether it is shadowing, whether it is mentoring. Mentoring means out of all the different professions, choose somebody, have your child first interview that person, figure out which direction the child wants to go in, and have a streamlined set of questions. Okay, with that streamlined set of questions, you help the child build a resume. You'll ask me why, how can a 14-year-old have a resume? Is it possible for a 14-year-old to have a resume? Yes, why not? Okay, you have, again, there you list out the strengths, the weaknesses, what they have achieved, whether they have any accomplishments, whether there are any areas of interest where they would like to accomplish, would like to explore and accomplish. Figure with them. I believe in doing hands-on stuff, okay, so that you can actually arrive at a final conclusive where you can apply that in life. Application is core. Unless you apply it, it's not going to help your child. Children here have loads and loads of opportunity. So please work with your child in such a way they can mentor, they can intern, they can job shadow. Okay, and that is the way to go. I have some questions here. Somebody has said she wants to go set a goal for life, but is facing difficulty every time she faces difficulty, she gets upset. Yes, of course, because resilience is something that we haven't worked with right from the beginning. Okay, one aspect of life we have to agree on that yes, life is not easy, it's not smooth. There are going to be road bumps and obstacles. So this is something we need to work with our children and prepare them from the beginning that things are not as easy. Okay, what happens, like Dr. Almira said, child comes, says, I want something. If it is possible, if it is not possible, whether you have to take a loan, parents today try and see that they fulfill every single demand of the child. Because they say, I didn't get it, so I want my child to get it. But when it is a child's turn to become a parent, who's going to be there for the child? Okay? Then there is nobody. Then what will the child do? Follow the same process. And it makes it slightly uncomfortable living when a child is not able to learn how to wait or change the goal because there is an obstacle. So these are things that we need to consciously remember. Okay, don't be a safety net for our children. Please avoid giving in to all demands, reasonable or unreasonable. Okay, it doesn't help the child at all, and that you need to start working with your child about how and where the difficulties can come in. So when you have that entire, introspective sheet where you list the skills, the strengths, what are uh, the potentials of a particular career, how you can earn in it, how you won't earn in it, both things work. Okay, you have journalists who are famous and you have journalists who are literally working every day and earning a pittance, and you have some writers who don't get anything at all. So that kind of reality is something that you need to work with your child. So once they know these are the things that are going to come in, they will again review and tell them it's okay. Okay, before you make that one final choice about where you're going to go, it's okay for you to keep exploring. But it's not okay to give up. It's not okay to give up because it's difficult. It's not okay to give up because I don't know how. If you don't know how, ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Okay, so these are the questions that I have. Somebody said concentration problem, can't concentrate on anything for more than 5 minutes. Darling, if the concentration is an issue, we need to maybe get an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder assessment done. Yeah, depending on which area you are in, we can, tell you where and how to go about it. How to guide which stream to choose in future is something that I just told you. Work with them when they're very young and expose them to as many different streams as possible. Don't make the choice for them. And it's okay. Sometimes today children say, I don't want to be part of, education system for a year. I want to take a gap year. It's okay. But what they do in that gap year is very important. Okay, what are they doing in that gap year? How are they spending the time? Are they sitting at home and playing on their tabs or their iPads or their phones? Or are they constructively learning some sort of skill? Are they assisting a professional and going on the job and learning? Different things that we need to explore. Okay, taking a gap year is not an excuse to just sit and do time pass. Taking a gap year means you're going to be working hard and learning and doing something different. Okay, so these are things that setting goals is something that you're going to work with only when you have your goal sheet in place. Okay, when you demonstrate what is going to happen and work with the child, what is the goal that you have. Come, this is an idea. Okay, it's as simple as now, like how Dharavi Matters came about. We realized that there was a lot of difficulties going on in Dharavi, and it was so we got in freshers. Okay, the entire team was brought in, and we had a goal of where we want to go. And those children then charted out plans. I was just like one little figurehead, was guiding, saying, "Come on, let's work with this, let's work with that." And those girls and boys did such a fabulous. We had a 10th standard child also who was being a mentor, and we had somebody with a PG also. So it is so interesting the way it worked out. Yeah.
Dr. Prem, we have a panel of parents who would like to be on the screen and have a few more question and answers.
Sure.
May we have
that? Sure.
All right. So I take this opportunity to introduce our Ms. Vinisha Chhabra Sawan, who is leading the panel of parents. She holds a bachelor's in home science in human development and as an alumni of home science. She has done a postgraduate diploma in guidance and counseling. She holds an executive postgraduate diploma in business management, master's in business administration in HR, and is a certified HR analytics professional. And she has facilitated more than 2,000 learning sessions for 50,000 participants across the HR sector. And she is also a visiting faculty in our college and a parent of a teenager. So welcome Ms. Vinisha and to all our panel of parents, and Ms. Vinisha will introduce.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we have a panel of parents here. May I quickly call them on board here? Um,
Parents, feel free
Mrs. Priya Pillai, can you, and as I am calling you out, can you please switch on your cameras so that you are visible? Hi, Priya. She is parent of Gauri Pillai, who is studying with us in Dr. BMN College. Mr. Ritesh Motwani, he is parent of Meghna Motwani. Mr. Mitesh and Falguni Purohit, they are parents of Dhwani Purohit. Mr. and Mrs. Almeida, they are parents of Vanessa Almeida. Mr. Naresh Gujjar, parents of Moksha Gujjar. Mr. Sachin Mahatre, father of Sakshi Mahatre. And Mr. Sanjay Dod, parent of Aditi Dod.
Yeah,
So,
good morning, everybody.
good afternoon. So, Ms. Nirmala Almeida, we have all the parents here, and we would like to take the opportunity here to, ask our speakers a few questions that we all have. Priya, would you like to start? Priya, I think you will need to unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. It is good morning, maybe good afternoon here in Japan. Thank you so much for giving an opportunity over here, and obliged by the two speakers over here to enlighten us regarding parenting. I know everybody here as a parent have their own ups and downs.
Where are you going?
I just have a query.
Achha, I thought it's Ira.
Yeah. I just have a query. As per the first interaction, I understood that our script as a parent is very important. What you are saying, it has to be consciously spoken in front of the children. I have a question, like how to have a anger management for the children, for the teenagers, like.
Okay, do you want me to answer that question?
Yes, like.
Okay,
so
if you yes. First and foremost, I'm talking. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. So the first thing is what parents say is very important, but what parents do is even more important, because children model what you do, not necessarily what you say. For example, okay, what I'm trying to say is I might say that you should do something, but I'm doing the opposite. So I'm saying study hard, be committed, but I'm not committed. So parents should do things if they want their children to emulate them. But to come back to your more important question, how to help the teenager in anger management? Basically, I have found through my counseling practice that when you handle the thoughts of the adolescent, you can get them to control their anger, because thoughts give rise to feelings. Are you aware of that? It's not a situation that gives rise to anger. It is your thoughts about that situation that gives rise to anger. So what I normally do at the end of that first slide on anger, I had shared this with you all, if you remember, the 3 things that children say to make themselves angry. First and foremost, I must have that, whatever it is. Okay. If not, I must, you must. You must communicate with me properly. You must be my friend. You must give me money. You must give me money right now. So it's a lot of demanding. And when they don't get it, naturally, they will not get it in life. They start getting very angry. So the first thing we train children to do is to change that must to It would be nice if I got money from my parents. I prefer that my friend communicates with me in a different way. Can you see the difference between the two? One is a demand and the other is a preference.
Right.
That is the first point. Second point, they catastrophize things. My parents scolded me. This is awful. This is terrible. Now, obviously, scolding and all in a house is very normal. So we have to tone it down. Is it awful? I ask them, or is it merely frustrating or annoying? And then they tone it down because they realize they're catastrophizing things in life. So that's the second thing to get them to stop getting angry, because their anger is because they are magnifying things. Once you tell them that, is it that, or is it more frustration or annoyance, they agree with you. That's the second part. And the third part is unbearable. It's unbearable. Most of the teenagers will say, I can't bear this, I can't bear that. And then you have to turn around and say, you don't like it, but you can cope with it. Many of them have coped with the situation for years and suddenly they find it unbearable. So you have to use these three ways in which you can control your child's anger. The three ways are mainly by thoughts. Of course, you can distract the child. You can, the thing is, find out what the child is angry about. Anger is not negative. Anger is positive. It is a signal. Something is happening in the child's life. Don't look at it negatively. What is the child angry about? Find out. Is it the home? Is it the peer? Is it academics? And then apply this. What are the thoughts that are creating these feelings? Okay, so in a gist, because I'm sure there may be other parents asking questions. So I've just, has that answered your question?
Yes,
Priya?
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes. So
All right.
basically,
Thank you, ma'am.
our script should be very important when you're dealing
Right.
with a teenager. Thank you
Script
so
and
much.
your behavior. Yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mr. Ritesh Motwani would also like to ask Dr. Tanuja Prem. Perhaps.
Hello everyone, this is Ritesh Motwani.
Hanji.
So, while I saw that most of the questions are already answers during these two wonderful sessions, and I thank you very much for that. This is something that I put in my question yesterday, before yesterday. How do we monitor our children without, being a spy, and at the same time without being a Hitler? So consider a case when I think of my child's safety. I think of installing cameras at my home, right? If it's a camera, then they become conscious. They're not free to do what they want to do. Consider if it's a spy camera, then I'm not being an honest father, right? So how do we ensure that we give them the freedom they want, but at the same time ensure their safety? That's what is a big challenge, I believe, as a parent for me.
As a parent, the first question I'd like to ask is, would you like to be monitored?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. Why would you not like to be monitored?
See, I understand that when we are free, we may do some negative things also, which we might not be doing when we are in front of others, right? That is something that even my child would want to do. But it's about, ensuring their safety. Now here, till they grow up, till we hold that responsibility of they being safe, and till they are not free of taking their decisions completely on their own, that's the time it's challenging of whether to hold back or to restrain them from doing something.
Right.
Is what I feel is I have the responsibility, not just authority, but I feel that I have that responsibility of taking care, but at the same time I should not be over authorizing myself.
Understood that. Thank you so much for the elaborate sharing. Most important for us to remember is that when we demonstrate what is the right behaviors, okay, automatically the child will also imbibe that. What happens is we need to have open discussions about expected behaviors and what is acceptable behavior. What happens at home is we are talking about what not to do. Don't surf porn sites, don't masturbate, don't do this, don't do that. Why don't? That is natural curiosity. But if they are doing it, do it safely. Okay, talk about it with the parent. It's okay, we are not here to judge you. We are not here that curiosity is there. Explain to them that what you're viewing is unnatural. What you're viewing is not real. Real life is very different. Have open conversations. The sites you log into, whether if you're on a gaming site, you do not use your original name and original ID. You do not use your original location. You change all those aspects so you maintain that sense of anonymity and you protect your identity. Okay, you work with the child not in a threatening way but in an open way, that the child doesn't have to hide something from you the minute you enter the room. Okay, the aspect is when you enter the room, the child should feel as comfortable. Yes, I'm doing something, would you want to join me? There is no shame. Okay, there is no shame. Everyone has feelings. Everyone is very curious in the negative way to join in for games or to get into chat rooms. Nowadays there are lots of these sites that have actual video calls that are happening between teenagers across the world. Okay, and there's a lot of information being shared. So the names being used, the IP addresses being used, you need to change your location and work with yourself, creating a sense of safety. Again, set the expected behaviors very clearly and you demonstrate those at home also. If your child comes up to you with an uncomfortable question, be open and honest and respond. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Motwani.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really brilliant. Even for me, I'm also learning so much today. Mr. and Mrs. Purohit, you wanted to ask a few questions.
Ma'am, unmute, please. Mrs. Purohit, please unmute.
Sorry. Good afternoon. दो टीनेजर डॉटर एक ही घर में साथ में रहे तो उसको मैनेज कैसे करते हैं पेरेंट्स के हिसाब से?
So she's asking basically that she's got two teenage daughters and it's a difficult task to manage both of them together.
So I'm sorry to intervene. This was actually one of my other questions that like I have two daughters. That's in conjunction to Mrs. Purohit. So like my younger daughter is very inquisitive. She's like talking about big achievements always. She's in 10th. And my elder daughter, she's cool, calm. She's happy with smaller things. So it becomes very difficult to be a different parent to one child and a different parent to another child. That's what I would like to add to Mrs. Purohit's question. Thank you.
Okay, so Mike, do I answer that question? Okay, you can't be heard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
So can you raise your hand? Can you just raise your hand, Mrs. Purohit? Can you see that the size of your fingers are not the same and yet they belong to the same body? Okay. So when you have two children, they are bound to be different and that differentness adds to their uniqueness. Okay, so we cannot expect one child to be a chapa copy. We shouldn't. In fact, it is wonderful and we should embrace diversity. Okay, so there is no reason for us to say how you can be a different parent. You don't have to be a different parent. You have to be able to accommodate the needs of your child. So there is a child in your house who is very confident, etc. You may not need to give the reassurance to that child that you need to give to the other child who gets anxious. So your strategies should be different depending on your child. Like one child can make friends easily, so wonderful, but his one friend has a lot of difficulty in making friends. You may need to help that child to make friends. You may need to trust that child so that child develops confidence. Now, if you're talking about sibling rivalry, are you talking about sibling rivalry or that's not the question? Are you talking about both the children fighting in the house? If that may happen in your house, can I give you a strong tip? Please let them fight and let them resolve it on their own. Only if they are abusing each other physically or psychologically should you intervene. I remember when my two kids were small and they were fighting with each other, every time we went to intervene, the biggest joke is they would patch up and they would be fighting with us as parents. So it became parents on one side and both the children on the other side. And we soon learned this is not only a psychological principle, this is a common sense principle. Okay, so just let them fight, because my dear parents, fighting is normal and natural. Brother and sister, sister and sister, brother and brother, they fight, but they cannot do without each other. And that is important. So let them fight. Unless they're abusive towards each other, you don't need to intervene. Trust their resilience. Trust
Can I
their
just say something? Yeah, I just want to
It's
say
Tanuja,
something.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Almeida. That was amazing. Mrs. Purohit, what happens is we are looking at managing. Okay, we are not a management firm, we are parents. So instead of management, what we need to work with is empowering. Okay, when you talk with disrespect to a child, the child is going to use a similar tone, not like it, and use a similar tone with maybe the sibling or friends. So again, I come down to demonstration. Okay, when you demonstrate tolerance, acceptance of differences, and you work with non-personalizing of issues, every issue should not become a war. You need to choose which argument to get into, which argument is necessary, what is actually discussion worthy, what is actually fighting worthy. These are things that we need to decipher and decide. And only then can we work on empowering our children. When you sit down and speak to them about the right and the wrong, no judgmentalness. Okay, the tone of voice, no derogatory remarks being made, no sarcasm, demand I want this now. No. When your children are not willing to participate in any activity, give them that time. They need time to regulate, sit down, go on to eye level and talk to them about how they can then demonstrate that behavior that you require. There's no management at all. It's empowering. Simple.
On the same note,
Thank you,
Sorry,
madam.
interrupt you. I want to
uh,
regarding this question. Can I
uh,
ask?
Gulzar ma'am, I would request you to put it into the chat, and we'll definitely put it forth through the speakers, because we will not have we do not have that kind of
Okay, okay,
you know,
okay.
um, uh, uh, Tanuja ma'am and Nirmala ma'am, I would like to add to this particular question, where it's about siblings and handling them. Many a times now with the nuclear single child families, the single child has a friend or friends who tend to play the role of siblings as well during their upbringing. So there are issues related to that also. They're also teenagers, usually similar aged. Could you elaborate on that as to how to help them in those kind of situations? Because the other side, the other child has his or her own parents.
Dr. Almeida, would you like to go first?
Yeah, but I have not understood your question fully. What is it that you would like me to help you with?
So
they are single children. I understood
yeah,
that. And they are friends with others who try to be like siblings to them.
Yes. So, they also kind of sometimes have a sibling rivalry, despite them not really being siblings, but they play role of siblings because they're single children.
Now, why do you feel that they are playing a sibling role and not a friend role?
I'm
just asking you that question.
Yes,
okay?
yes,
Because it
I
could
do
be that,
feel.
yeah.
I do feel that sometimes they're not siblings. Sorry, not like friends. They are like they behave more like some of them. I'm not talking about all. They have their own set of friends as well. But some of the relationships, they do form like a sibling. Like I know my daughter is a single child, and I have friends who have their kids who are single as well. They're also single children, and they tend to have a rapport more like a sibling than like a friend. They will fight, they will argue, they will compare. They will because our families are that close. So it happens. I've seen that happen.
Okay. So I just want to make one point over here. Okay, they can be like siblings, or they can also be like friends, because see, we don't understand when there are two people who are very close to each other, then is when the fights start. Whether you call them sibling or whether you call them friend, because I have many students who come and say, we are so close, we are friends, we are so close, we fight, we make up, we fight, we make up. So it doesn't matter whether you call them sibling or whether you call them friend. fighting and making up and coming close and being supportive are all part and parcel of life. Okay, so this happens even in friendship, two people in a friendship. So what is it that you are worried about? Are you worried about that they are fighting in this relationship? Are you worried that they are longing for a sibling and so they are, what is your anxiety? I'm just telling you that.
Yeah. What you said, all of it is because so I will just elaborate and give you a little bit of example form. We have friends who their son is also a teen, and my daughter is 16. He's 13. So they talk, they connect, they video chat, and they are more like a brother and sister, and they are also Rakhi brother and sister. So they will end up fighting, arguing about small things, like she will tell him, you know what, you should take care of your crayons and you should take care of your pens, and he will start rebelling. And their fights are, I feel, more like siblings than like friends, and they patch up. So sometimes the fights go to the extent that we parents, like his parents and me, we get a little tense that, oh God, I think it's like really, what do we do? Though they're very supportive and they make him understand you're not supposed to talk to your didi like this. So because of the single child families, now the roles are slightly changing nowadays. I feel that. So in their attempt to have a sibling, they connect with other single children. So
okay, so just to tell you one thing, it is good. You're very fortunate that your daughter has found this friend's child whom she can relate to so well. See, as I tell people, the strength of a relationship is not in being very goody-goody to each other. Strength of relationship is whether you can fight with a person and whether you can come out of that fight successfully. And that is what is happening with your daughter and that friend's son, right? So there is no reason for you to be anxious. You have given her an opportunity to be with a kind of sibling, kind of in inverted commas, and let her go through what you experience with a sibling. It is normal. It is natural. It's natural for two friends to argue. It's natural for people who perceive themselves as siblings to fight, argue, and get over it. So you don't feel anxious. In fact, you thank your lucky stars that she's getting normal experience of being with another person of a similar age group, and she's learning to negotiate these fights and quarrels, and sometimes they may not talk to each other, and sometimes they may be the best of buddies. This is what happens in a home with natural siblings. So what you're doing is the best thing going. It's only your anxiety that is making you feel that something is wrong. No, you're providing her with a normalizing experience, and I want to congratulate you for that. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Mr. and Mrs. Almeida. Elizabeth, are you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, everybody. Really, both the sessions were really very good. Good tips on parenting, as well as good information for us to learn more things than how to tackle our children, especially our teenagers. Here, my question is, like, how to build concentration on the studies. There is lack of concentration, not even 5 minutes, 10 minutes or 15 minutes at the most he will study, and again when I turn my back, then again he will do something else. At certain times even he is hiding things regarding the studies, and if I want to ask him something, then he will even tell lies to me. Okay, so then what should I do and how should I work on it, ma'am?
Why does a child need to lie?
Because
why does anyone need to lie? Yeah. Why does anyone need to lie? Because there is fear of a consequence, which may be very unpleasant, which I cannot deal with. Okay, so then I push the matter under the carpet, or I don't discuss it at all, or I twist the truth, or I come up with a brand new truth, which over a period of time seems like a truth because I've repeated it enough times to myself. Okay, so that consequence is something that a parent needs to reflect on parenting behavior, parenting styles. Okay, we need to count, we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing that a child is hiding things from us, a child is lying and coming to this stage where that sense of openness is missing. Okay, I'll explain a simple misunderstanding. Okay, in February, early March, okay, early March, on the way back from somewhere at about 11:30 in the night, my son said, "Stop the car, ma. I need to buy something." He was then 14. Now he's 15. He went out and ran to the medical store and came back. I thought maybe he wants to buy an ice cream or something like that. He used to get a traveling allowance. Okay. So now he came into the car and he sat down and he says, "Ma, I spent 240 rupees." I said, "What? You bought ice cream for 240? It's just the two of us? What rubbish. What kind of ice cream did you buy? By the time we reach home, the family pack will melt." I got angry with him. He says, "No, ma, I bought a face mask." I said, "Arey, you should have told me. I have multiple types of face masks at home. You want cocoa butter, you want neem oil, what? Which variety you want to tell me?" He's saying, "Mother, you're yelling at me for something that I have not. That's not the face mask. I bought face mask to protect myself from COVID-19 because I'm coming and going to school." So without actually understanding, at 11:30 in the night, even I was bheja fried. Even he was bheja fried. But he remembered that sanitization is important. So he went and bought himself that whole pack of 12. You know, in those days, we were getting only those medical masks. So without really understanding, I jumped into the fray and caused a nice little thing. But because we've had this relationship of openness since the beginning, it didn't become a full-fledged war. It didn't escalate into anything. Once he explained this thing, I said, "I am sorry, son, for jumping to conclusions without really knowing." Okay, and then I try to act smart and say, "I don't have eyes at the back of my head. You could have clarified." He says, "Ma, you're tired. We'll talk about it tomorrow." He's 14 to my 47. Okay, but he stood up to me and says, "Ma, you're tired. Chill." Where does that come from when you are not judging yourself also as a parent? That the child has to tell me the truth. The child has to do this, has to get so many marks. We don't need to work with that. We need to go easy with ourselves also. Okay? So have that little communication with the child and say, "It's okay. Whatever, the outcome, we accept. We move ahead." Okay? I'm sorry, but I have to run now. I have another session at 1 o'clock. Okay? So I'm going to be running away. Thank you so very much for having me over. I really enjoyed the session. And thank you, Dr. Almeida. RECBT is one of my favorites, and that's what I practice. Okay, so it felt like I was listening, it was like an absolute review for me. Thank you, Dr. Kirti Pathak. Thank you, Mrs. Pant, and thank you, Dr. Pandurang, for having me over. Really, I really had a blast. Yeah. Thank you and happy times. See you. Happy times.
Thank you, Tanuja ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
As we go ahead, we have Mr. Gujar here. Would like to pose this next question. Mr. Naresh, can you unmute yourself? Mr. Gujar, you will need to unmute yourself. I think we are having he's perhaps having some technical issues. So we'll just move to the next parent as of now, Mr. Sachin Mhatre.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Good afternoon, ma'am. Almeida, ma'am, it's a very wonderful session. We are very happy with that. I want to ask one question to you, behalf of as a representative of the parents. You know that as a teenager, their moods are just swinging frequently. So my question to you that how to deal with the moods of a teenager, how to manage the teenager's temper.
Okay, that's a very good question because everyone knows that teenagers have swings of mood. Sometimes they're very happy, sometimes they're very angry, sometimes they're very depressed. I think what you need to do is first and foremost give them the time and space to process what is happening to them and to come out of it. So in short, tell yourself it is normal for them to have those moods. You do not have to overreact to it. Okay, at the most you can say, I am there for you if you need me at any time. Keep yourself available. Keep the doors of communication open. Give them an opportunity to process it and get out of the mood themselves, because it's making them independent. They can go to their friends for help. They can come to you for help in case they feel the need. So all that I'm trying to say is accept the fact that your teenager will have moods, number one. However, if those moods are increasing in intensity, especially the depression, then you got to look out for the signs which I've already given you in the slide, where they are sleeping, not getting up, don't want to be woken up, and they are eating either too little or too much. They can't concentrate on their work. And the numerous signs, low self-esteem, some of them have harmed themselves, cut their wrist, some may even have suicidal thoughts. Then you need to send your daughter or son to a specialist, to a psychologist or a psychiatrist who can help the person. So till that time, you don't need to intervene when it is mild, when it is inevitable, when it's the natural mood swing of a teenager. Give them time to recoup, let them time to process, let them time to get over it. Always keep the doors of communication open. I am there for you if ever you need me. You know, I'm a counselor, and so many teenagers and young adults have come to tell me we cannot share anything with our parents. The parents are the last people we will share anything with, which is a very sad thing. We'll share with anybody else, but not our parents. So as Tanuja had said, are we not inspiring trust and faith in our children? Are we not making them feel that we are resourceful? Not any specific parents, but the parent community. Are we doing something wrong that we are not building up trust of our children in relation to us? Maybe we are not respecting them, so they don't respect us. Maybe we're screaming and shouting at them, so they don't, they're scared of us. All right, so 3 things. Moods are normal. Please accept them. Let the child get out of it on its own. Don't make an issue. Even if you realize the child is going through the moods, because the more you react to it, the more they will overreact. Okay. Secondly, if it increases, then you can say, I'm there for you. I'm always there for you if ever you need me. You cannot handle, please tell your child to visit a psychologist. So it's a matter of degree. Okay. Have I answered your question, Mr. Matre?
Yes. Yes, thank you, ma'am. It's a great answer. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. As we all know, we are already way ahead of our time schedules. So, Ms. Nirmala ma'am, I would really like to thank you for answering the questions. We have more parents waiting to ask you questions, but then I think I will take their questions and post it to you in personal, because we are really running short of time now. And we would like to, wind up this session for the day.
Ma'am, just one question, please. Ma'am, can I have one question only, please?
Yes, Sanjay sir. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I want to ask that how to reduce the carelessness and casual approach of the of our children, and how to how to teach them the importance of time and money in the life while choosing their career. Please, I'm audible now?
Yes, you're audible. So one question at a time. So the one question was about money. Some parents have already raised this question that our children don't understand the value of money. Can I tell you one nice way of helping your child to understand the value? Please give your children pocket money, okay, and tell them if they want something so badly, they have to accumulate their pocket money and spend from it. Believe it or not, they will think 10 times about spending, because they will then understand the value of money. Many of us Indian parents, we give money whenever the child wants, so the child does not understand the value. But if you say for your basic needs, okay, I will give you whatever you want, but more than above, I will give you a fixed cent of allowance, and you decide what is important, and you accumulate that money and you spend it on whatever you want. You won't believe it. There are kids who have come to me to say, I've not yet bought what I wanted, because I'm still thinking, is it worthwhile or not? Oh, how smart. When it comes to them paying, they're wondering whether it's worthwhile or not. But when it comes to the parents paying, they don't care. Okay, so that is one thing in way in which you can help your child. Another way is, my friend has a beautiful policy. On every birthday of the child, she gives sweets and a little food to the orphan children. So they celebrate their birthdays in an orphanage. And she has done that from the time her child was 3 years and whatever, 3 and 4 years. So the children go to the orphanage and they see people who are dressed in very ordinary clothes, who are eating such simple routine food, and that triggers off a lot of empathy. And they also begin to understand the value of money, how blessed they are that they are not living like the children in an orphanage. So that is to do with the money part of it. Okay, talking about responsibility, I have already put it in the slide. Do you remember the mother who taught the child a lesson in terms of responsibility? You want to be a 3-year-old child? Okay, then you'll get only privileges of a 3-year-old. Okay, so responsibilities and privileges go together. So if any child wants a privilege, he has to earn it. He cannot get it without a privilege. And one more question. Management of time. Yeah, very good question. Many students come to me for help. Ma'am, the exam is round the corner. And they'll tell me also, and we have not started studying. And they're very cool about it. When you say it's round the corner, what do you mean by round the corner? Ma'am, 15 days for a big exam, a final exam or a unit test. And I get so surprised. The way they will say it, they'll say 15 days more for the paper to start, as though the 15 days is 15 years. So what I do, I take a paper and a pen and I just ask them, okay, 15 days left. Tell me how many subjects you have. This is particularly at the college or high school level. They will tell me 7 subjects. Okay, I'll say 7 and you have 15 days. Last day you have to keep for, settling your mind, etc. So how many days per subject? They will tell me, oh my God, only 2 days per subject. Can you understand what I'm saying? Only 2 days per subject. Then they start getting all anxious. Oh my God, we were just thinking 15 days more, but we did not bother that there were 7 subjects, 2 days. Now we will never finish. Now we have to start. And when do you have to start? We have to start just now. We can't even waste a single day. So help them to plan. And you don't need to wait for only 15 days for the exam. You can plan way ahead of time. So that is planning. Okay, with respect to time management in a general way, one interesting thing, my dear parents, your children are looking at you. If you manage your time properly, you don't need to tell them anything. They will also manage their time appropriately. You can just help them to plan and help them to prioritize. Help them to prioritize, because sometimes they don't know. Like they'll fool around. I'll tell you what children do. They fool around chatting in the evening when they are fresh. And in the night, they start studying when their eyes are closing. So that is the time that you can help them to plan. What is your body rhythm like? When are you feeling more like studying? When are you feeling less like studying? When you're feeling less like studying, chat with your friend at that time. Okay, if you're falling asleep at night, that's the time that you should be chatting rather than in the evening when you could be spending, with your academics. If you reason out with them, sit with them and plan, it will go well. Okay, have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nirmala ma'am. Janvi, would you take over?
Over to Alka ma'am.
I would like to welcome and thank Shri Dilip Bhai Trivedi, who is the president of our Seva Mandal Education Society. He has been a part of our webinar, and always he has been a source of encouragement to conduct the webinars and to conduct all the activities which are related to our. I would also like to call upon Mala ma'am, the principal, who would like to say a few words before. Mala ma'am, you are here?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether you can see me because I'm in office at the moment.
Yes, we can see you now, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. The bandwidth is not very good, so I'm switching my video off. Okay. I would like to extend my heartfelt thank you to Almeida madam. It was a pleasure listening to you throughout the morning, and Dr. Tanuja also, who is, I think, has left. But as teachers, we also need to learn a lot on how to deal with adolescents, and some of the tips that you have given are invaluable. I also would like to thank the parents who have made the effort to join this particular session, which is the brainchild of the HD department. It's a good idea, I think an excellent idea that the department has come up with, particularly because this is something that is very much needed. And we often have parents coming to us and telling us, asking us how to deal with their teenage daughters. And I do hope that the department takes this ahead and continues with such sessions. It's very good to see the involvement of parents. I can see that Mr. Matre, Sakshi's father, and Mr. Ujjar, Moksha's father, Meghna's parents, Vanessa's mother, Gauri's mother. These are some of the parents who I have been able to notice that they're here, and all the other parents also. We're all in this together. Your children are our children, your daughters are our daughters. In BMN, we don't refer to them as students, we refer to them as our daughters or our girls. Okay? And that's the kind of relationship that we have tried to build up with all the students, past and present. Just something that I would like to share with all the parents is that I have been a class teacher myself, handle first year students, and they're the most difficult, I think, at first year level because they're just out of junior college and come to senior college, and there's a sense of freedom that they feel is an entitlement. But we've all been teenagers ourselves at some point or the other. I think we should reflect on how we rebelled against our parents and how eventually we built up a good relationship with our own parents. And just wait for 2 years or 3 years, and then you'll be surprised at how things change. So a lot of patience on your part. And I think that this is an age, it's a difficult age. We're all in this together. We have a counselor, a full-time counselor whom some of you have been in touch with. Teachers are always there. I'm always there in my office if we need to speak at any point of time. And we have such wonderful well-wishers with us, such experts like Dr. Anmida, who has given her invaluable time this afternoon. So thank you again, everybody. And it's been a wonderful morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mala ma'am. I think so we have said all. But on a formal note, on behalf of the department, I would like to thank Dr. Almeida and Dr. Tanuja Prem for sharing their vast experience and knowledge to help the adolescents hone their ways of thinking and behaving. We hope that the parents have taken home tips to improve their communication with the adolescent children. I would also like to thank Mrs. Vinisha Sawant because she has been coordinating with the parents and with the speakers and had a very good answer session. I would also like to thank the parents and the participants for having such an interactive session for the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Alka ma'am.
On behalf of all the parents, we are thankful to Dr. BMN College for organizing such a wonderful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.